when you go and watch a movie and you pay to go to a theater, why are you watching that movie? Do you care which cameras were used in like making the film? Do you care about like the software that was used? If you go there for one thing and one thing only, which is you want to be entertained, you want to like the story, this doesn't change the equation. If I can have 100 more people make 100 more movies that you like watching, then you will watch them. You will find the time to watch them because that's what you find valuable. I think the dynamics and the formula and the equation that's changing is how many more people can do that, and how many people can tell their stories. The way we value them will still be the same. Like nothing will change. You as a viewer are going to judge it with the same values that you had it before, which is it a good story or is it not?
Welcome to Inspired. I'm Alexa Von Tobel. What if the next Oscar winner made their film entirely with AI? Well, Cristóbal Valenzuela is the co-founder and CEO of Runway, the company that pioneered AI video generation and is building world models that will power the next era of human storytelling. The company is now valued at $5.3 billion. Their models are being used by Hollywood studios, gamers, architects, teachers, robotic researchers, and everyday creators around the globe. In this conversation, we're going to talk about why AI video is an entirely new medium that requires an entirely new mental model, what happens when the cost of creating video content truly goes to zero, how these models are already acting as genuine creative collaborators, and why every major technological shift has felt catastrophic in the moment and transformative in retrospect. Let's dive right in. If you're running a startup, we know things like managing equity and communicating with investors are always top of mind. Carta has built a connected suite of tools that over 40,000 companies use to do just that. Their platform of software and services helps you lay the groundwork so you can focus on building. To learn more or get started, visit carta.com. And with that, let's welcome Chris. First of all, Chris, I'm so grateful to have you on today. I know our good pal Howie from Airtable had us meet. I'm really happy to have you here, especially as a fellow New Yorker. So first, just thank you and welcome. I want to start from the beginning. One of the things I find so interesting about you, especially with this incredible business that you built, that's sort of the intersection of the future in so many ways. I want to take a quick minute to rewind. You grew up in Chile, and you moved to New York to join NYU's ITP program back in the day. Growing up in Chile, how do you think that changed you? How do you think that impacted you? It would just be so great to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, happy to. And thanks for having me. Great to see you again. Yeah, it's true. I grew up in Chile. I spent most of my time in Chile. I came here to New York almost 10 years ago, as you were saying, to study at ITP. Well, I think Chile like formed me in a lot of different ways. I've studied there. My family's there. My upbringing was there. And in a way, I think I had to bring a lot of that into the way I started to build Runway and the way we help shape the culture within the company early on. Um, Chile, if you've ever been there, it's a very different country and culture from the States and from the US. And so it was definitely an adjustment period at the beginning, specifically within like speed and how things are done. Chile is very, very stuck in sometimes in the past in some particular ways. And so, yeah, changing and adapting to it has been probably like the biggest lesson as I've been here for now more than a decade or so.
That's wonderful. If you think back to 2018, can you just, in plain English, give us a sense of where did the idea for Runway come? What was the aha moment? And in so many ways, you actually um, you built Runway well before generative AI took off on the main stage. In so many ways, you were extremely early. Let's start a little bit with where was the idea? Where did it come from?
Yeah, so the idea, kind of the origins of Runway date back to our work as the three of us, the co-founders, were doing at NYU. We were trying to understand and research this idea of using AI and deep learning for creative use cases, and more of like, oh, there's one particular idea we want to explore. It was more about the concept of using and training large models to help solve or understand how they can be useful within creative environments. And that was like the premise, I would say. I think more than idea, we had like some boundaries and some context in which we thought was worth experimenting and building. And over the last 8 years, and since we started the company, we've been relentless in like making sure that that vision and the thesis like still kind of like becomes true, which is using AI as a means to augment human creativity and human intellect. And I think we've gotten far and further from realizing that in some way, but we're still along. There's still a long way to go, to be honest.
In plain English for everybody out there, what is Runway doing and what does it help people do?
Yeah, so in plain English, Runway does is we're an AI research company that's building what we call world models. And world models are AI models that can understand and interact with the world perhaps in similar ways that we do. And the applications of that technology and those models are broad. There's a lot of applications, as you can imagine, in film and media and advertising, which is where we're kind of like growing the most these days. You can create these very sophisticated models that you can then deploy and be kind of co-pilots of creative minds. And so we're very much used these days in Hollywood and in media, and everyone is using these highly sophisticated models to do things that they just couldn't do before. But the idea is also that these world models and these video models can have such a wider set of applications beyond media alone. And so what we do at Runway is figure out what other applications we can deploy the models into. And we now have use cases in robotics, we have use cases in the gaming world, in education, and in many other kind of disciplines. And at the core, Runway is both training the models, creating the technology, innovating it, and then building the products and the experiences on which millions of people can now use them.
Chris, give us a few examples. Just like you just rattled off some categories. Give us some practical examples in use cases.
Sure. So you can think about basically three main use cases, and I'll walk you through each of those in a minute. But the first one is this idea of using AI or video and world models to create entertainment or create media. So if you're ever watching a movie or if you're going to stream something in your house, you are watching the content or the scenes or the videos someone either recorded or produced with traditional kind of VFX, CGI techniques and tools. Um, Today, where AI is, we are at a place in time where a model can simulate or generate almost all of those scenes. And so, if you're in the business of storytelling, in the business of filmmaking, in the business of making media, because this also helps and works really well for advertisers and basically for any other honestly content creator out there, you can use these models to do that at a fraction of the time that it would have taken you to do it traditionally. And so the more concrete use case is, well, this is a new kind of camera. This is a tool instead of AI models that can help you tell stories visually in ways that you couldn't do before. For high-end professional cinematic worlds and for casual creators. And so that's a little bit of the user base of Runway. We work with the best and greatest Hollywood studios in LA and the world. And we also work with just consumers and creators who are using Runway to have fun. So that's kind of one concrete use case that's actually getting deployed a ton these days. It's just as a means to create video and content. A second kind of like possibility is what happens when you start running these models in real time. So again, you can create movie-like content or really compelling stories, really compelling scenes. What happens the moment you start running them in real time? Real time. This is real time, right? We're speaking to each other. You're responding to my questions. I'm answering your questions as well. You can do a version of this with AI models these days visually, which is kind of surprising and kind of magical, to be honest. And so there's a lot of interactions and things you can do. You can have personalized tutors. You can teach people about new languages. You can just have a game like experience where you can chat with characters you couldn't do before. So that's another kind of compelling use case of our technology these days. And the other one is what happens when you start thinking about not only creating content and videos we humans want to watch, because we find those kind of two categories like entertaining. We can also create videos for robots to watch. What I mean by that is, if these videos are good enough for us, they might be as well good enough for robots, and robots can watch them not for the sake of finding this entertaining. They can basically use this as a way to learn about the world, learn about how the physical world works. And in other words, you're creating data sets or training data sets. There's ways of also evaluating how effective these data sets are. And so we are kind of focusing on kind of those three main areas these days. It's like this idea of like async or story like narrative storytelling. This idea of real time or interactive kind of experiences, and then the robotics kind of world physical AI aspect as well.
There's a lot that you just said, and I'm trying to think about the best way to ask this question. Um, so Runway's first models, like Gen 1 and Gen 2, were some of the first widely used systems for video to video and text to video generation. I want to ask this very specific question, which is technically speaking, what had to become true in order to have that step function change that Runway created, which in so many ways you've now made video creation wildly accessible to a layman, a layperson? What technically had to happen for that to work?
Yeah, that's a good question. A couple things had to happen. I mean, there's definitely like compute and like resources had to be in place for training models at like that scale. And again, early versions of runways like video models were decently small compared to where things are these days. But you had to have the infrastructure, the technical infrastructure to train those models. The second part was there had to be interesting algorithmic ideas around how you can actually deploy and train the models in the first place. And the second one, data. There needs to be like a good amount of really well captioned and kind of curated and well sorted data. And a lot of those things have been kind of progressing over the last couple of years. But I think over the last maybe 4 years or five at the most, things have converged in terms of compute availability, good algorithms and good data. And that's, I think, some of the results is the models that we you just mentioned, and hopefully more. And this is not only for video, this is just generally for the industry. So language models and coding models and all of them have benefited from those three variables kind of becoming better over time.
In the last few years, what has surprised you about the progress of Runway? What has been surprising to you, Chris?
There's a lot of things that are surprising every day. That's the goal of building some of the stuff we're building, you know? So a couple of things, I mean, definitely come to mind that I think have been kind of consistent patterns. Have been one, underestimating the speed in which things are changing. I think it's a common misconception to look at a model and see all the imperfections and the flaws of the models these days, and tend to think that it will never work because X, Y, or Z doesn't work. And I've heard that for the last 10 years consistently, and we keep like moving the goalpost. People thought images will never be able, models will never be able to generate images, and here we are. We haven't solved the images, but we're very decently close to solving the idea of generating pretty much any image that you want. People thought video generation was 10 years away, and it was not. People thought then you couldn't generate hands with five fingers, and all of the things that I think we've keep coming back as to what models are not going to be able to do. uh, we've proven in the industry, I think this is a collective research effort of many other people, have proven that the models will just keep on getting better. And so speed and underestimating progress is perhaps one of the key lessons and surprises I've learned over time.
On that thread of kind of how people are maybe not thinking about this properly, where are people still using the wrong mental model when they think about this shift in video? And how does that lead to maybe some of the wrong conclusions?
Well, I think it's rooted in this idea of how we've and industry experts have understood how video and world models are used is maybe coming from a place of comfort and a place of um, understanding of how the world works. And so when people who work in filmmaking look at video models, they tend to think of them in this very like neat, specific way of how every other tool fits within their like workflow and way of doing things.
Yep.
And the reality is that for someone to truly get the best and the most successful outputs of these models, you need to rethink things from the ground up. It's like first principles thinking all over again. And I need to understand that it's less about making things 10, 20% better. Is maybe you need to just rethink the entire work you're working in the first place. And I think we made the mistake in when understanding new mediums, we made the mistake many different times. Even with like when cameras was first like around, people made the mistake of thinking them as an extension of painting, and of course, it's not an extension of painting. It's a different medium. You need to understand the world differently to use a camera, and we've gotten used to that. But that wasn't the norm back then. And so again, it's for me, it's a new medium, and so you really need to think from for a different mental model how to best use the models to do what you want to do.
That's really well said, which is that the shift from painting to photographs was a different medium. And now AI video generation is a fundamentally different medium. It is not you with your camcorder or you with your iPhone recording video. Um, that's
Right.
a great analogy of like the mental shift that we have to think about. Maybe this is a good time to ask this question, which is and I saw you once give a talk at a thesis event about the future, which is why I'm so excited to ask you more questions about the future. If the cost of creating content goes to effectively zero, right? It's becoming and it's not just, text content, it's
Correct.
truly long form, medium form video content can be generated really to near free almost. Um what does become scarce and where does the value actually move? How do you think about that shift in value, Cristobal?
Well, there's an argument to be said that like there's no shift in value. Maybe I'll rephrase the question, but like, and I'll ask you, it's like what when you go and watch a movie and you pay to go to a theater, why are you watching that movie?
Because I want to see the content. I want to.
R-
I'm going to see The Devil Wears Prada 2 in theater.
Why? Why? Do you care which cameras were used in like making the film with the that particular like feature? Do you
No,
care about like the
no,
software that was used?
no.
If you go there for one thing and one thing only, which is you want to be entertained, you want to like the story. The value you're paying for that ticket is not rooted on the technicalities or the complexity or the budget the movie had. You just want to go because you feel it could be a good movie to watch and you like watching good movies, right? So the value is the story, right? um, this doesn't change the equation. If I can have 100 more people make 100 more the Devil's Wears Prada kind of movies that you like watching, then you will watch them. You will find the time to watch them because that's what you find valuable. I think the dynamics and the formula and the equation that's changing is how many more people can do that, and how many people can tell their stories. The way we value them will still be the same, like nothing will change, but now way more people are going to be able and are able to have the opportunity to tell you a story you couldn't do before, but you as a viewer are going to judge it with the same values that you had it before, which is it a good story or is it not? That I think will not change, and we've proven that through the history of art that still is the case.
Basically, I'm gonna jump to a conclusion. We will have an explosion of content creation, where because you put this incredible power of a almost an LA studio into the hands of a normal everyday person. Um, but your point of the quality of what's created the story, the whether it's interesting or not, compelling or not, won't change. But when you maybe and again, maybe you have a point of view when you 10,000x the volume of content, does that change its value?
No, I don't think so. I think we just figure out ways of navigating and sorting through content better. And again, like I'll go to an extreme example, but the first ever storyteller was someone perhaps sitting in a cave telling someone else's story at night with like fingers and maybe drawings on the wall. And then suddenly someone was like, oh, we can actually take the fire and putting like 4 other caves. That same person will be like, well, it's too many stories. We have like 4 people now telling stories, right? It's like we need to, there's a massive amount of how many you can be in 4 places at the same time. Like, stop this, right?
Down the caves.
That same story has been told like dozens of times where like when publishing and books became like something that you could do at an industrial scale, that same reaction is like, well, how many books are you going to read? We have 4,000 books being published every single year. Do we need more books? Like, does the value of book publishing will decrease? And I think the world is in a much better place when we're publishing millions of books these days. And of course, you don't read them all, but like we have libraries and reviews and sorting, and we have way more ideas coming out of the world because the tools that would enable you to tell those stories have become more accessible to people. Um, and I think this is for me like this kind of the same point, which is it's another explosion of storytelling and the people who can tell stories. um, I don't think there's an optimal amount of content out there. That feels like a little bit for me like saying like, hey, you know what? Like we're gonna stop progress altogether. The amount of movies that we have right now and content is the optimal. We can't do any more else. And no, I think there's like way more. Like the demand for like stories and sharing ideas of the world and perspectives of the world is never ending. And I think hopefully more people will help to do it with technology.
Chris, when you think about how you set out in 2018, 8 plus years ago now, um, to build the product and then to build the business model. First, tell us what is the business model of Runway, and how did you prioritize building this truly groundbreaking product, which is anybody can create incredibly high quality generative video. Um, how did you think about balancing a business model and a way to pay the bills versus getting the product right?
Well, I think those two things are should be intertwined. If you're building a good product, then like people are gonna pay for it, then you can pay the bills, right?
Yep.
like those two things should definitely like be connected somehow. The business model for us is very simple. If we help you make something that you think it's worth, you'll pay us, and you'll help us pay for the bills for us to give you that. And so we charge for a subscription or for credits, but the value of the product comes from people being able to tell stories with it. And so that's why we host, for example, this film festival in New York and in LA every year that kind of highlight some of the best creations people are making with AI these days to showcase like the amount of creative explosion happening these days when it comes to runway into AI. And I think we want to see more of that. The business around it should be like, well, if we're succeeding at helping people be creative, then there's probably like a nice and sustainable price we can charge for that.
When you think of some of the more surprising ways that Runway is being used, what are some of the ways that kind of surprised you to see the product in the wild?
Oof, there are many. I think I recently crossed a threshold where I have three brothers, and the three of them have been using Runway every day since the last couple of weeks, and that was like a nice surprising moment because they're not. One of my brothers, and my brother works in like media and advertising, so I felt more of a natural fit for him to use it. But my two sisters are like an architect and like a teacher, and so I was never expecting them to use Runway, and now they use it every day, which is great. Like my sister using it to like teach classes and help their students like engage with content. My sister's like visualizing like the designs she's been doing for her clients,
Wow.
and you have like hundreds, if not thousands, and probably like millions of use cases that are similar to that, which are things you might not even like consider are useful because they're different from your day to day like world. Um, but they're very useful for many people. I mean, we have use cases of Runway for music videos, for like learning, for medical teaching. There's like people using it for architecture, for design, for filmmaking, for many other things that I think we never thought of when we started. But that's kind of the point. It means that these general purpose systems are becoming more usable as the models have progressed. And so probably there's still a long way to go.
As these tools that you're building continue to improve, and obviously, there's a sort of a um, asymmetric curve in terms of just the power and the potential. It's going to continue to get better faster. But what performs best today in the Runway algorithms? Like what's working extremely well
What do you mean in
on
terms of
on the products? What type of video creation? Like give us some of the examples of things that are just kind of stunningly beautiful and powerful.
Oof, I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's the models are very flexible. They can do a lot of different things and different art styles. I think long form content is becoming more visible. Like we used to create like again like single images, then like shorter videos, and then longer form content. Now I think artistically it's less of a problem. I think the biggest challenge is you can think of like consistent forms and styles not being solved, but being very close to solved. The hardest these days is motion and physics and consistency in like long form content. That's I would say that where we need to put perhaps the most research and time to make sure it works as it should.
Can you imagine a future where someone sitting on Runway, like, wins a solo Oscar? Like, is that
Yeah, absolutely. That's like hopefully a couple years away from now, hopefully less.
we're a early, small investor in Suno AI, and,
Nice.
they people started creating literally award-winning content and music. So I imagine the analogies here are very similar. Are we there? Like, could that happen right now almost?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the question there is not if it can happen, is more how well positioned and well prepare our institutions for that. Which is not a question of like if it can, it's like why and when, you know? Um, and look, I can make people are making incredibly like compelling videos and stories with fully they're fully synthetic or fully generated, or a mix of like real like live action and also generated, and it's just really good. Just really good. Um, I think there's natural like tendency from institutions to try to reject it first. And that actually for me is like a great
Absolutely.
sign. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great sign. Again, if you look at the history of art, that's been like the trend when new generations like question the status quo and the establishment is to they're gonna get rejected. That actually like was what like impressionism was at the time. It was a rejected art, and they formed the Salon of the Rejected to show their own work, and eventually like that rejected became like the norm, and I think that cycle keeps on repeating. Where like the establishment that is being like dominating like the art culture like sets what the principles and the standards are, and then new generations question that and make things in ways that are not supposed to be made, and then they kind of effectively end up winning, and then you do that again and again and again. And so I think we're at a point where like you can make incredibly compelling incredibly compelling music and content and videos and films and ads and whatever you want. um it's how we want to like treat it that like will matter the most, and I think it's probably institutions already adapting to that.
That's beautifully said, which is when you're really pushing the boundaries of the status quo, it's the first inning is rejection.
Correct.
And
Which is a
that
great
in
sign.
which is a great sign. Um, okay, question. I want to shift to the future. You are uniquely positioned to see what the world could look like. As somebody who's on the bleeding edge of this. So as these models move towards real-time generation where video isn't rendered or edited, but fully generated live, what does that change? And I'll give just some examples of what went through my head, but, like, as we think about the future of gaming or entertainment or even advertising, can you just, like, stretch our thinking, Cristobal, to, like, what you see as, like, kind of wild out there possibilities that, happen when there is no editing, there's no cleanup, it's just in real time. All of us could be viewing something totally different and unique.
Yeah, it's I mean it's hard to predict because you have to like be there to see it, and I think a lot of it will be shaped by people more than any other company. So it's less about us and anyone else saying like here are the 4 or 5 things. You need to think about it as a general purpose medium. Like the many use cases of the camera were not driven by one person. It was driven by decades of experimentation and tinkering and putting things in different places. And I think we're real time. We're already experiencing a version of the same. Which, of course, you can think about the obvious ones. Like gaming is kind of like around the corner. You can create very interactive, interesting, playable experiences with real time models. Then you can think about tutoring and like live experiences where you can have a version of this, right? Imagine I did an example of this when I was chatting with like Socrates and like Aristotle, and so you can just like discuss things and you're immersed in a conversation that you just couldn't do before, and it feels very natural because you're both seeing each other. You're kind of reading like the way I'm saying things. You can read the way they're saying things. You can think about that. You can think about um like companions. There's many opportunities for people to have someone in their side onto their side when they're doing things they haven't done before, when they're alone. And there's many interesting use cases that I think we're just like starting to like grasp and begin to experiment with, again because it's early. These models specifically in real time, we have a model that we released a couple months ago called Characters that allows you to run a conversational agent and a model in that domain. It's only a couple weeks old, and so it's very early beginnings of that new real time world.
Give me like a examples, like try to bring this like into the reality. Is this like game that I can play in real time that is imagined in real time? You just sort of said like discussion with Socrates and Aristotle as a method of learning. Um, Give us some like examples to try to make this as real as possible.
I mean, you're kind of like heading directionally like into the right like a set of examples, and maybe going back to this idea of like mental models and what needs to change.
Yep.
Like when we say a game, like there's rules and systems of what a game is. Specifically when you think about a real tool or like a digital game. But like there's opportunities for us to create a new type of experience that I call nonlinear. Nonlinear meaning like there's no beginning and end, and you can take it as an open-ended world. And the only shape and form we have to do that in a digital form is a video game. But the moment you open it and have an open-ended world, you can have a nonlinear experience that doesn't and may not feel like a game, right? So it's like if I spend 6 hours a day chatting with a fantastical character that's like driving my imagination in interesting places and it's helping me think, what is that? Is that a game? Is that a film? Is that a phone call? Is that a interaction? My position is like, well, the problem is not what to name it. The thing here is that we need to understand that experience as a net new thing. We've never been able to do such a thing in the first place. So by labeling a game, I'm actually like underestimated, we might think about it like differently just because we're putting it the mental models and the rules of what a game should be like. But if you want to spend 6 hours with chatting with your favorite philosopher and you find it entertaining and you find it the most value you've gotten from a like media experience in a while, that's amazing. What name do we put to it? I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I don't
I
know.
was
We'll
gonna
figure it out. And it's not
that's a
important.
bit of
Yeah.
that's a bit of your example that you started with, where you were like, when we went from painting to a photograph, and we tried to stretch them as the same, but they have fundamentally different maybe rules and applications than the way you could
Correct.
think about them. Um, and we're trying to use the labels of what we know as the world we know it. But it sounds like what you're really saying is like we are net new creating. This is a net new creation of a
Correct.
medium.
Correct. Yes, and to that same point, when photography was around, to your point of labels and words, we society didn't have the words to describe what they were seeing, and
Yep.
so they thought of photography as, and this is true, as mirrors with memories, because it was, if you think about photography, it's kind of that. It's a mirror. It's reflecting reality. It's capturing reality, but it's like saving it in time. And then eventually we come up with this idea of photography and the language of photography and all the things that came after it, but it wasn't that someone was like, oh, you know what, I'm going to invent photography. It was like a bunch of people and scientists from mid 1800s experimenting with chemicals, reactions, and physical materials, and realizing that that was at the time mostly a medium to understand movement, and like scientific progress was effectively meant to be used as storytelling. I think the most compelling use cases of cameras these days is storytelling, and then maybe there's an argument to be said that all technologies are somehow a form of storytelling eventually. Um, and I think this case is actually very similar, which is like AI is just becoming another form of storytelling, and in our continuous evolution of storytelling as a society altogether.
Let's dream a bit about the future of advertising.
Sure.
And I remember a thesis talk that I watched you give. Um, and it's so easy when you can see some of the videos and you're just like, wow, oh my God, like the advertising could foundationally just change before us. Um, can you just talk a little about kind of what you see the future of advertising could look like?
Well, it depends on the scale, and then the time scale that you're thinking about. There's a world where you can think about, well, what happens if we just keep extrapolating and thinking about the obvious next iteration of where this technology is going. Um, Advertisers and advertising, if you think about it from a base level, is also about, it's a story. It's someone wants to tell you a story, so you can buy into that story and hopefully buy a product or a service, right? That's the goal. And the tricky part is, well, what story do you tell? How do you tell that story? Where do you put that story? And that's marketing, that's distribution, that's like ads, right? Um, there's an argument to be said, well, if I can run that process automatically in a personalized way, hyper specific, I can create the most compelling stories for you to engage with my product or service. And I can do it in such a way that I'm probably like skipping any intermediary, any step in between that will allow me to get to my audience the fastest. And I think a lot of people are thinking about this, which is, if you're already watching a screen, you're already in front of a piece of media or an ad or something, I could effectively generate something that will like immediately be specific to you. And I can do it with an agent or a combination of agents that will know what's best for you based on who you are. Now that's an extreme kind of case, and there might be some benefits and some downsides of that. And but I think directionally that's where the world is heading, to be honest. And advertising is not too far from being transformed at its most fundamental level because of agents being able to do all of the work that now we're doing through different people and through different companies.
So instead of, I'll just make up an example. Instead of Budweiser maybe having 2 or 3 ads that they run in a month, hypothetically, they could have 30,000 ads that they run where you see an ad. I'm a mom of 3 kids, it's showing a crazy household, and it's like, "Do you want a beer?"
Correct.
But to your point, it's hyper personalized, fully generative, N of 1, content, because the video is now effectively free to make, and an agent can have a data file on me and a data file on you and generate both of those videos instantly.
Correct.
That's pretty cool. Are there any downsides to that world?
Uh, of course. Of course, the downsides there are upsides and downsides of everything. And I think nothing is like a zero sum game. And I think it's nothing about just like all the things that we'll gain. And of course, you can think about the consequence of hyper personalization. You can think about there's an argument of like shared culture and like shared experiences. I don't think everyone has a full answer around like what will change and what will keep being the same. I do generally think of myself as an optimist, being like, sure, there's going to be a lot of things that we'll have to like reassess, but effectively society has always found a way. We had this with the internet where like a lot of people were freaking out early on about many of the same things in like a different scale, where what happens when people have access to information so freely and people might self-organize to like do X, Y, or Z. And the truth is that might still happen, but like the collective outcome and positive impact of the internet has been probably like way worth it than like the 1% trying to find like way bad ways of using it. And I think I think like personalized advertising is like a form. It's like one of the many ways that you can use the technology. And there's positive aspects of it, and the negatives I think we'll just have to figure out and how to manage together as a society.
I agree with everything you just said, which is the benefits are probably dramatically outweighing the costs, and we'll have to navigate that. I
Correct.
want to dig more into that in a second, but I just want to ask one other thing. If you think about the thing you're most excited about right now that you can see, and like just the thing that's like kind of stuck in your brain and really lighting you up, Cristobal, what would that be? Like, what part of this future vision is the most motivating and thrilling for you?
Maybe because it's fresh on my mind and it's very close to me. It's I'm thinking about again my sisters and my brother of like them becoming users of Runway and our product, and I think the biggest kind of subtext there is there's billions. I'm not exaggerating. Like there's billions of people out there that are waiting and have this latent set of expressions and ideas and things they want to tell the world that they haven't been able to. And where I get the most excited is like we started opening the floodgates to many people to start communicating things they just weren't able to communicate before because they didn't have the tools to. And I think it's the beginning of an kind of explosion of sorts in terms of that creative world, and that excites me a lot. I think there's many more people out there that are waiting for these things to just be around the corner so they can tell stories and share their perspective of the world in ways they couldn't do before.
So, with any new medium, and obviously with everything around Anthropic and Mythos, there's been like a lot of talk about responsibility. Um, as somebody who is really on the forefront of an entire medium shift, just how do you think about what to be most thoughtful and cautious about as you think about the responsibility of this wave of innovation? Thoughts there?
Well, I think thinking about model development and technology in such a way that doesn't feel isolated by one culture or one industry. I think when you think about AI, is one of these rare general purpose technologies that has to be looked from different like vantage points. And if you only think about it from like a tech perspective, you're missing out on so many other domains of humans and
I
society and
agree.
countries.
I agree.
And I think what's missing the most these days is um kind of like popping that like bubble a little bit and being like, well, this is not. It's kind of the joke people do with or make with when people design too many things in California, or like, I don't know, think about like the weather app. It's almost perfect in California, so all the weather apps are always like shiny and like sunny, and everything is like thought to be using like this perfect weather. If you go to any other part of the world, like the weather is like crazy and unpredictable, and so the apps sometimes are not thought for like people outside of California, because a lot of the people who design these apps are in California, but the weather doesn't operate in the way California operates. But we somehow have all kind of thought and have to be fit into like the way California thinks. And I think with AI, we actually have to break that mold a lot more and have way more different perspectives of the world, because the technology and the impact will be more massive than any other app we built before.
That's a great example, by the way, which is that if California is making a weather app, it's mainly sunny all the time. As someone who's sitting in New York with you right now, goddamn cold outside today,
Yeah.
and it's almost May.
But the app, but I think like the iPhone app was never meant for like cold and climate, so it did never like warns you or like tells you if like seeing if it's gonna rain. It's hard, and it's like, is it gonna rain or is the probability of raining? Like, can you just tell me?
Yes,
Then
that's
probably
right.
like people probably in California, it's like, why do you care about raining? It's like never raining. It's like,
Yeah, or like
yeah,
send me a text last night that's like, "Please bring your winter coat today,
correct.
uh, because we're having a shift." Um, are you worried about like massive job loss in the next decade, Cristobal? Like, how do you think about that? As a, I mean, it's so clear from this conversation that you are an incredibly thoughtful, you're almost like historian of technology, in the way that you think about what you're developing. How do you think about just some of the stuff that's terrifying people right now?
Um, well, I do think jobs are going to change and some will go away. I mean, that would be like unresponsible to say that that won't be the case. Like, of
Yep.
course, like technology is automating a lot of jobs that we thought will never get automated. But again, I'm an optimist, and I think we might have happened and go through some similar experiences before, where um, this is not a zero sum game. Technology is never going to be about everything, all of it, and we figure out new things. We figure out new jobs. We just the hardest thing for me to understand, or like sometimes realize, is we collectively lack imagination to project and understand a world and things we have never experienced before, and try to do this exercise. If you think about, again, we're talking about painting and the history of photography. If you put yourself in the beginning of the 1900s, and you think about the world back then, and what was the technology state of the world and where things were, and if I tell you there's in 150 years there're going to be a class of people that are going to be making a lot of money by recording videos of themselves in like dancing in this like vertical like brick like device, you'll be like, what are you like, it's just you're crazy, right? It's insane. And then here we are, and that's like a form of, and that works, and actually like we
And
got
it's a
here, and
job.
actually that's a job, and like people make a lot of money out of it. um and but like you couldn't have not predicted that back then. It's impossible. Like I'm pretty sure no one 100 years ago thought we will ever reach that point. And and of course you can play that same game at every point in time. And so right now we're standing at the beginning of the 1900s, trying to think about the jobs we'll have in 150 years. And my answer is like, just it's a kind of like a meaningless like exercise because like we just don't know. We'll effectively figure out what those jobs are as we see them. And the only thing is that it's going to take us way less than 150 years to get to that point. But sometimes we just need to, experiment more and try things more and be more open minded, and we'll find our way.
So in short, you're basically saying we will figure it out. Yes,
Correct.
many jobs will disappear. Many more jobs, things that we can't even imagine, like dancing in front of a video, influencers in the wild, will be a new form factor that, and actually stressing over it is probably, in your opinion, kind of a misuse of energy because we will figure it out. We
Correct.
always do.
We always do. Yes.
I love that. You're clearly an optimist. Cristobal, I want to ask a few quick questions to end here today.
Sure.
Just quick fire round. Um, and I'm really excited to ask some of these because you're clearly somebody who thinks a lot about the evolution of these technologies. But my question would be, what is a book that you read in your life that's really shaped you that you would just say it would be a misuse for people in the world not to read?
Oh wow, fiction or non-fiction?
Anything. You tell us.
Anything.
You can pick
Uh,
2 if you're struggling.
no, I'm gonna go with a rare one. Maybe it's not the book people might have thought of, but I really like poetry, and there's like an Chilean poet that I like a lot. It's called Nicanor Parra. Um, the reason I like him is because a lot of his poems, and there's a different set of books, and probably like if you can search for some of them, there's like a collection of them. Um, and I think the whole idea for him has always been like question the premise of what poetry should feel like and be like. And so when you read it, it's strange, it's weird, you feel you're reading something new. And this is like 60, 70 years ago. So he's like, he was like thinking about just the structure of what makes society very differently. And I like that. I like that idea of like, you take this established institutions and the way things are supposed to work, and you kind of like ask the most difficult and perhaps um uh 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 like pointing question, which is why, like why why do you have to do that? And when people like give all these convoluted answers as to why, it's like, well, it doesn't matter. It's just like, if you just want to do it differently, do it differently. And I think for us, at least for me, that's a lot of how we look at the world. So always question the why, and always question like the institutions. And I took a lot of inspiration from reading his books early on.
I love it. What is a mantra, that kind of runs in your head, a saying, a phrase that you kind of swear by?
Figure it out. Just figure it out. We were discussing that a few minutes ago. It's actually a mantra we say at Runway a lot. You might do things you've never done before, and there's going to be a lot of questions. And there's one thing I want to tell you: figure it out. You can figure out everything you want if you just like have the right mentality. So yeah, I like the idea of figuring things out.
I love that. I love that a lot. Um, what is the favorite creation you've made on Runway yourself? So, like, something you made that you're just like, "Cool, I love this."
This week or this month, I use it every day. Yeah, recently I made this. There's this like writer that I really like called Cortázar. That's like Argentinian. Like he was at the same time that Borges was around, and um, it's a short story that I really like that I've never like have seen in the like in a video format, and so I made it, and it just felt great that I could do it in like 2 days or so.
That's so cool. Um, I wanna ask, what is the most unique way you've seen someone use Runway? I know you mentioned your siblings, your sisters, your brother. What is the weirdest, quirkiest way that sort of the team was, like, kind of blown away where someone used it?
Um, I mean, there are many. I recently was having dinner with a famous actress, and she was telling me that she was writing her first screenplay, and she was using Runway to visualize the scenes she was generating, or the creating or writing. And then there were objects in the scene that appeared that she didn't prompt to, but then those objects ended up like influencing the script. And she was mentioning this idea of like a red cup. So she was like, I don't know, a dialogue between two people in a table. And then she was using Runway to kind of visualize that idea. And then like Runway just placed like a red cup in the table. And she was like, oh, the red cup became like a trope and an object within the scene. And that's great. I never thought you could use a tool for brainstorming your writing. And now you can.
I'm really glad that you shared that example because that is such a visual way to reimagine even writing. Like,
Correct.
I mean, that was a perfect example, Cristobal, of just how there's a shift in the future, which is right now we think in our mind and then write it
Yes.
versus see it and then write it. I mean, that's an entire paradigm shift.
Yeah, that's it's technology limitation that we can fix now.
That's incredible. Okay, last few quick questions here. What is your favorite hack to using AI? Not runway related, just in general. Pay it forward to us a way that you've improved your life.
By using AI,
Yeah.
uh, I just like try to automate as much as I can. Like there's many things I think people are underestimating what models can do, and if you just like experiment enough, and there's no really rules. Like these are general purpose systems. You can figure out how to connect into your life in any way you want. And so if you're referring too much on what others are doing, it's like that might work for them, but like for you, you might do something else because your life is different. And so being very flexible and customizing things, I think has worked the best for me.
So automating as much as you possibly can.
Correct.
Um, my last question will be just because I'm personally just so interested. Um, you are clearly a fabulous entrepreneur. You have built a wildly successful company that is at the paradigm shift of a generational change. What was the biggest pinch me moment for you? Just like on a human level, on a personal level, what was like a day where you went home and told your family and friends you were just like, I can't believe this cool thing happened? Like what made you get goosebumps?
Uh, that's a good question. Uh, so there's many moments, I guess, just collectively in how we've hired people and who we get to work with every day that feels like a goosebump, to be honest. But um, we now host a film festival. I think I was telling you where we get like thousands of people in like the Lincoln Center here in New York City to showcase like some of the best films, and we get thousands of people and work with like some of the greatest like filmmakers in the world. That feels like amazing. But if you look back at like the first version that we ever did, like I don't know, 5 years ago, um, we did it in a very small theater in Chinatown. It was like, I mean, this is 2022 ish, I think, 2023. We're testing the idea what happens if we start like just promoting and doing more of like a celebration of art and artists. And look, I thought like no one was gonna show up. and like yeah, we had a full theater. It was a small theater, but we had a full theater, and that was like an interesting moment. I mean, now we're selling out like way bigger venues and it's way more impactful. But looking back, I think the moment where we saw just like people lining up for the small theater to watch the things felt like, oh yeah, it works. You know, people really like this, and so yeah, maybe it was a good like moment in the history of the company.
Maybe the future Oscar award is a runway award.
Yeah, there we go.
There
Should
we
do it.
go. Uh, uh, first of all, it's been so wonderful to get to know you. I am rooting for you in every way. Thank you so much. And I basically took away from this conversation what a like you will like truly beautiful poetic thinker you are. You are truly an artist at the forefront of technology. And I'm really grateful to have somebody
Oh
with
well,
like a real love of humanity at the forefront of building this tool. That feels like a blessing for all of us. So
well, thank
we're
you, thank
rooting
you.
for
I
you.
appreciate that.
And thank you so much for your time today, and best of luck.
Thank you, I appreciate that. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you all so much for tuning in today. If you enjoyed the episode, please rate, review, subscribe. We'll be back again with another episode of Inspired with Alexa Montobo. Thank you.